Happy Saturday, YouTube. This is Justin with Parody InfoSec, and we're coming back with a newly retired Cascade from HackTheBox. Man, it's been quite a week, so I'm excited to get to this video. There's going to be a lot of LDAP enumeration, decompiling. We're going to get an opportunity to play with dnSpy. There's a lot of issues in this box with general password reuse, but you have to kind of bounce back and forth between a few different systems. And the final push to administrator deals with Active Directory recycle bin. So these were a few different concepts that were a little bit new to me when I went through the box, and I'd like to introduce them to you. The tools today, we're going to be touching on just enum for Linux, a lot of in-packet tools, especially smbclient, ldapsearch, and just bouncing back and forth. We'll bring in a new script that I found, Vncpasswd.py, to decrypt a VNC password, as well as my favorite Evil-WinRM, like I said, dnSpy. And in general, you're going to need a Windows box in order to do the dnSpy from the side that I use. There's a few other techniques that I've seen out there, and you'll see some of those walkthroughs that touch on digging into the database and the DLLs, but I went purely to dnSpy, super easy, and we're going to cover that right now. All right, let's get started. As always, our first step will be an nmap, so we'll do an nmap. I'm going to leave off scripts and services. We're going to leave off extra ports for right now just because I want to see kind of what it looks like, because we're going to have a few issues with this box. So nmap, and then we'll do a 10.10.10.182 VV. And the first thing you're going to see is it looks like that it's down, and as it says right there, just go ahead and ignore the ping probes, because this box doesn't allow pings. And all of a sudden you start to see ports coming up. You see your 139, your 445, 135. You're seeing all your normal RPC calls. You got Kerberos on 88, DNS on 53. You've got all your LDAPs, 389, 636, and then your 32, 68, and 69. So this is a fairly standard for a domain controller. Just keep that in mind. So we'll go ahead and start enum for Linux, and what you're going to see with this system, I'll get it started and talk about it a little bit. What it's going to do is go through, try and enumerate the workgroup domain, find the domain controller. It'll then go on to find domain users, domain groups, local users, local groups. It will find the password permissions or the password policy per se, like lockout and number of characters, things like that. But I'm going to go ahead and stop it because this is one of my pet peeves. If you look at this, we're getting a lot of uninitialized global workgroups in here. And it's just an issue with, well, it did find the domain name here. It didn't find it up on the top. So you have the option to specify it, and because we've already identified that it's Cascade at this point, I'm going to go ahead and here, I'm going to clear the screen, and we'll type in TAC-W for workgroup or domain in this case, Cascade. And then I'm going to make sure to say TAC-A because I want to make it pull all. You can say TAC-U for usernames, TAC-S for the SMB information and some of the server connections. But with the TAC-A, we're going to get all the information, and now that we've specified the workgroup, you can see it automatically filled that information in here, and you're going to see that the errors all go away, so it'll be nice and clean for when we try to look at this. You're seeing usernames, just like I said, password policy information. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this for right now because I actually want to put it into a deeper folder for further grep, cut, that kind of stuff. So we'll just go ahead and say HTTP, Cascade, and we'll call this enum. And so that'll run in the background. We're going to go ahead and take a deeper look at this. I haven't done the scripts and versions, but one of the things that I kind of mentioned earlier was we're going to have some ports that aren't on here. And I just want you to see kind of the difference between the basic. So this is the high priority ports versus a bigger port scan. So I'll just go ahead and we'll do a P full, so TAC P TAC, all ports, and we'll see what the difference is when it's all said and done, because I think it's important that people catch that. So that's running. We've got some of the information that's going to be popping up in that enum for Linux. And then we see there's been some identification of LDAP ports. This box, you have to do a little bit of LDAP tweaking, and it's not just what you get from enum for Linux, because enum for Linux will run LDAP search. But we need to go further into it and discuss the format, start hitting some of the naming context, and get a little bit deeper into that pool to get the information that we're going to need. So we'll go ahead and get started with LDAP. Just to kind of see what it looks like, see what we're playing around with. LDAP search is relatively new to me. I've had it on a couple boxes, and there's enough information to get started, but this box really pushes you down that lane of figuring a little bit more out. So we'll just do LDAP search, and we'll start with help. It's going to be asking for options followed by filter attributes, filter and attributes. So you'll see the TAC B a lot in what we're about to do, which is just the base DN for search. We're going to look at the base, and then we're going to start applying filters from there. I'm going to use the TAC LLL, which is make sure that you're doing LDIF in format version 2. No comments, no version, just make it clean, take out all the other crap. And then we're going to start filtering down. I'm going to provide the host. I'm going to do it two different ways. So I'll provide the host, and I'll provide the URI, just to show some of the ways that you can go about it. In this box, we're going to go with a TAC-X, which is simple authentication. We're not going to use SASL. We're not going to try and do anything advanced. Right now, this box is just, it's a nice introduction into LDAP, to be honest. So let's clear this page and get started with this. So LDAP search. And like I said, TAC-X, TAC LLL, and then let's take a look at the naming context first. So we'll do a TAC-S. We'll say the base naming context. Just give me the big picture, I guess. So it's not able to contact it because I didn't give it a server. All right. So in this box, let's go ahead and put this into our Etsy host just to make it easier as we go along. We'll do that in a new window, so we'll start this up, and we'll just do a sudo nano. It's my preference. I prefer that over vi-vim and hosts. So we'll go down here. Here's my field that I usually put my HackTheBox stuff into. So 10, 10, 10, 182. And we're going to call this Cascade. All right. We'll go back over this window, and we will say TAC-H for host. So take a look at the host Cascade, giving the naming conventions. And sure enough, it provides back Cascade, and actually provides us kind of a different domain, which is Cascade.local. So we'll go ahead and add that as well. All right. So we got both of those in there. If I were to go back and say, give me Cascade.local, it'll kind of do the same thing, but there are a few cases where we're going to need a little bit of a column A, a little bit of column B. So we've got the naming context in there. Now we want to kind of look at the entirety of the domain. So we'll say, let's do an ldap search, x, LLL. This is our host. But now we need to start giving it a base to look at in the LDAP domain. So our base is going to be DC equal Cascade, just exactly what you saw up there, DC equal local. And as we run that, we get a ton of information. So this is where you're going to see, okay, this is a username, Ian Croft. You're going to see a group. Here's finance. So this is a big picture, wide swath of the whole domain. Great amount of information. I actually sorted through this on my own when I went through the box the first time. We're going to go ahead and make it a little bit easier in this version as I show you. We're going to say, go ahead, give me the DC of Cascade local, but now I want to search a little bit. So I'm going to say, I want to look at all object class. So just, it's kind of a sub scope down version. So I want to look at all people. So person, I'll bracket that. And now I'm just looking at people. You can do the same thing for groups. And in some cases, you might say object class star to give me all the information, but you can do the same thing with just saying DC Cascade DC local. With this one, we can go ahead and get started kind of parsing through some of these users. I'll start from the top. So here we go. The first one is Cascade Cask Guest. This is the built-in guest account. As you look through here, there's no last log off, last log on. This account's never been used. It's more than likely locked. We're going to look bad password count. Nobody's tried to mess with it. Login count 0. It's never been logged into. So we'll go ahead and move down. Now we're talking about a computer. This is a domain controller in this case. And it's going to provide the information about this one, Windows 2008 R2 standard. It's going to be a 7601 version, Service Pack 1. So a little bit of information about the computer, a little bit of information about the different services, term serve, ldap, DFSR, and some of the host information. Next account down here is for ArkSvc. This is considered a user account, but as you can see right here, the membership is remote management users, which for me is WinRM, Active Directory, Recycle Bin. So you got to keep that in mind. That's a new one I've never seen before. And then there's IT. IT is always a great group. I love that one. So we'll keep going down. This is an account you're going to want to keep in mind. So over here, I'm also going to just go to this directory and I will nano users. I'm going to say ArkSvc. Sounds like a good account to me to keep in mind for later. We're going to keep going down. We got a s.smith. And s.smith is part of the audit share. He is also a part of the remote management users. He is also part of the IT. So that's another interesting name. We've got r.thompson. r.thompson is only a part of the IT group. He's got no bad password count, bad password time. He has been logged in before, and he has set his password. All of his information's here. Something on the last line is a little bit odd. It's called Cascade Legacy Password. PWD. It looks good to me. So we're going to go ahead and grab that. I think that one's kind of a fun one. And then we'll just come in here and say nanopass. Copy that in. Keep that in mind. All right. Continue down. You got util. Got James Wakefield. Just kind of keeping information. That PWD was kind of an interesting one, so maybe we'll try something here. John Goodhand. None of these other folks have that legacy on the bottom, so it kind of sticks out as a sore thumb. Let's go ahead and try this and just say rep. We'll say, don't worry about the case. PWD. Sure enough, when you see that, you get the normal password count, password last set, and that one sticks out. Nobody else has a Cascade legacy password. All right. Well, we kind of left off on this. We made an enum file, so we'll just say more enum, more HTTP Cascade enum. And we've got some information here. We've got our users. Got an index. Here's our password policy. So 5. You will see a lockout count, 30 minutes. Got to keep that in mind if you start trying to do some just bulk spray password attacks. But you will see that the threshold is none. Thought it was in here, but there is a admin, so admin lockout, not seeing it. Okay, we'll keep going down. Here's your built-in groups. Here's your built-in group membership. Here's some of those local groups, so IT, production, HR, Active Directory, Recycle Bin, Backup, Temps, and WinRM, as well as Remote Management Users, Factory, Finance, Audit Share, Data Share, so there's a couple shares out there. And then here's those memberships, so ArkSvc, s.smith, r.thompson are part of IT. We've got two, so s.smith and ArkSvc, part of the Remote Management Users, and then ArkSvc has Active Directory Recycle Bin. Gives us a lot of information to go off of. When you look at some of these lines, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to use grep followed by cut in order to get my usernames. So there's a couple different times they pop up in here, but this is a little bit more of my favorite list right here. So I'll grep by Cascade. So let's go ahead. I'll just clean this up. I'm going to say cat enum, and I'm going to say grep Cascade. Okay. That didn't do too bad. I'm actually going to add on to that, say grep domain users. We'll put those in single quotes. So that gets me this shorter list right here. So I'll go ahead and say that, and then I'll say cut. If you see out of all these lines, they've all got one backslash. So we'll just go ahead and cut off the backslash. So delimiter is going to be backslash, and then everything in front to the left is going to be field 1. Everything in the back is field 2. So we'll say F2. Okay, we got some garbage in there, but you've got your usernames for the most part. So we'll go ahead and say add this to we'll add this to HTTP Cascade, and then we'll add it to users. So if we come over here and we say cat users, we've got the ArkSvc. It does end up back in this list right here. You've got a couple extra. We'll clean it up in just nano. So I'll go ahead and remove these lines, administrator, all the way down, DOM users. And that looks like a pretty good list. So when I get a pretty good list like that, and I've got a starting pass list, sometimes I'll just run MSF console in the background, and I'll use it just for doing a login sweep on SMB, just to see if the passwords exist. So while that boots up, let's go ahead and go back here and take a look at this. So on this list, we saw 5388, 135, 139, 445. Like I said, those are your RPC calls. 3089, 636, 32, 68, 69 are your LDAP. And then that 15985 went undetected on the first check. So always keep that in mind. You don't want to forget about that. It's a great tool, especially on HackTheBox, but if you're working on any other box, if you have a set of Windows Remote Management group members, there's a good chance you're going to find 5985 open. If you're not, then you're probably doing your nmap, your port scan wrong. So we've got our users. We've done our LDAP here. I've got a username and a pass. So I want to go ahead and run that in my Metasploit. So we'll do a search, SMB. I'm really looking for the SMB login. So you're going to find it right here. It's just a simple login check scanner, so use 57. And we'll show options. We're going to set that our host. And we could say Cascade because we put it into our Etsy host And for user file, we'll say home Cali set user file home Cali HTTP Cascade, and then it should be our users. We're going to do the same thing with our pass file home Cali pass, and we'll just show our options again real quick just to check. Cascade pass, Cascade users. We've got Cascade as our R host. Let's go ahead and exploit this and see what we get back. So nothing comes back. That's kind of strange. If anybody hasn't noticed it already, this password looks a little strange to start with. Anything that ends at an equal or a double equal, you should be looking at as a base 64 decode option. So we'll go ahead and copy this all the way to the end. Copy, so we'll say echo base 64 tap D, and we get this back. Ryan 5 Eva. Now that looks like a password. So let's go ahead and copy that, and we're gonna say nano HTTP Cascade, and that will go into the pass file. So we'll just paste it in. Cool. Close it out. Let's try running this again. And because the parameters are all the same, we can just keep updating the user pass, and you can keep it in the background. So it's a great kind of background tool for me if I think there's going to be some password reuse. So we got a green, that's going to be r.thompson. So now we have access to r.thompson on SMB. Now, if you remember, when we went against remote management users, these are the only two. So it's not really worth our time to go after WinRM with r.thompson, but we know we've got SMB access. So let's go ahead and see what we can find. So we'll do an SMB client. We're going to ask to list 10, 10, 10, 182, and we're going to give it r.thompson. So just to make sure, I'm going to go over here and copy it. So Ryan 5 Eva, copy. Give it r.thompson's password, and we do see shares. When we originally did the enumeration unauthenticated, nothing popped up. So we can kind of go through and give it a couple to look at. So we'll say, let's take a look at Audit. That looks like a fun one. Paste the password in. No permissions. So we'll go back in here, say C. Without being an admin, you're not going to get C, you're not going to get admin, you're really not going to see IPC net login. There is one called print, and there's one called data. Data is a good one. We're an IT member, so we should be able to see a lot. Okay, there's some files on here. When I go to dump the files, I have kind of a particular way to go about it. So I'll back out of here. I'll make sure I'm in the right directory. So we'll say, let's go to that Cascade. I'm going to make the smbdump directory and go into it. And then we'll go ahead and dial back in. Make sure we see something. And then I'll run 3 prompts. There's 3 commands that I'll run to just dump a box. And you can script this if you really prefer. But a recurse, because I want to go through every file and every directory we've got available. I'm going to say prompt because I don't want to be asked yes, 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 yes every time. Because the next command I'm going to say is mget, so multiple get. star, I want everything. So as it goes through every file, every folder, it's going to pull it down. And that's why it's important for me to make sure I'm in a nice dump folder before I start this, because it's just going to pull everything. And you never know sometimes what you're going to get. So with this, we'll go ahead and exit. And let's see what we got. We got a couple folders, so I'll do an ls. And we'll do a recursive check. And these are the folders that it mentioned, and these are the files it mentioned. So there's a meeting notes, there's a recyclebin.log, dc-diag.log, and then a vnc install.reg file. So it's a registry key entry. And that's sitting in IT temp for s.smith. These are sitting in normal email archives in IT, different logs in the IT. So let's take a look at this one first. For ease, I'm going to pull this one up in my web browser just because it's going to look a lot prettier than what you're going to find in just catting an HTML file. So we've got file open. So we'll just say file home, Cali, HTTP, Cascade, smbdump. It was in the IT. It was in email archives, I believe. Yeah. So by looking at that, here's our email that we got. It's from Steve Smith to the entire IT internal department. And it's saying, these are the yesterday's meeting notes. There's a new production network that is going to be going live. They're going to be using a temporary account to perform all tasks related to migration, and the account will be deleted. Username is temp admin, and password is the same as the normal admin account password. So in this case, if we can find that password, there's a pretty good chance we're going to find the admin password. So we're going to come back to that when we start going from user to root. But for right now, I love this. So we're going to go ahead and take down temp admin, and we're going to put it in that same set of username file that we went through before. Come to the end, just say temp admin. Alright, so what else did we see? There's this bin log. So let's go ahead and cat, and I'll copy this over. We'll go cd. cd it. I'm in the wrong folder. That's what's happening. So cd smbdump, and then I will say go into the recycle bin, cat that log file. So it's going to tell you the recycle bin manager started up, access denied, started up. This is the user, so it is in definite respect to this user ARC service. It's going to move the object to recycle bin, test. Test is the object. Everything worked. And then this one, running as this user, moving to recycle bin the object, temp admin. So it's been moved to that recycle bin. Maybe there's a way we can pull that out later. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. We're going to keep going down. So we'll back out to logs DC. And we're going to cat that file. So this file, it's talking about tests, different tests it ran. Honestly, not a whole lot was gleaned from this one. This file is there as kind of a rabbit hole. So we'll back out of the DC, we'll back out of the logs. And the last file we're looking at is in the temp. And it actually belongs to s.smith. So we're going to cap that file. So this is a registry entry for Windows telling you, hey, this is going to run a tight VNC server. This is all the information. And if you come down here, there's a line called password. But password is in hex. And it's an encoded hex. So you actually need to know how VNC password does its encoding. For this one, we've got a nice fancy tool. So if I go to cd opt, I downloaded this VNC passwd.py. It's a neat little tool. Let's see if it gives us some information. So there's a couple different options. You can give it a file name, you can give it a password. D is actually going to be to decrypt, E is to encrypt. So we're going to just, right out of the gates, we're going to try and give it a attack D. And let's see if we can feed it. Let's see if we can feed it this file information. And because it's in hex, we're going to use the big tac H. So tac H big. I'm going to put this hex in here. Copy that in here, and then I'm going to take out all these commas. And run it. And when you run it, what you're going to see is there's a decrypted hex pass and a decrypted, I guess, binary bin path. And this right here is another password. So we'll go back to our common directory. And then we're going to nano the pass. We're going to add that one in. And every time I add that one in, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to rerun it against the list that we've got and see what kind of passwords that we've got in use. So in this case, I don't think I saved it. So we'll try that one more time. And that's where you see now we've got two green pluses. One for r.thompson and one for Steve Smith. Should stop here a second. There we go. So Steve Smith works. We know that when we looked at it, Steve Smith is one of the Windows remote management users. So now I'm going to start digging into more of the WinRM. I think we've kind of touched on a couple different things. We know what we're looking for. We got to figure out where we're going and where we're at. So clean this up. We'll do an Evil-WinRM. My user is s.smith. And my password is over here, and it's going to be that Steve2. Steve2. And then I will say 10.10.10.182 and let that run. And we're in as Steve Smith. As always, go to that desktop. Take a look, and we have user. So I'm going to go ahead and just cat user. Again, in this case, I'm going to type user. Again, this is HackTheBox has gone to dynamic passwords. Every time you reset the box, you're going to get a different root key. So this is going to work once. You're not going to see this by the time you watch this video and you try to run it. You can't use that. But if you follow these steps, you're going to find it just fine. So no worries there. So we've looked in the desktop. I like to look at downloads. Nothing in downloads. So we'll say net users. Let's see what users we've got. Pretty much everything we pulled down. Turnbull, Hanson, Berman. You got S. Smith, admin, backup service. So that's a nice little one. Crow, then ArkSvc, CascGuest. And I don't think we have CascGuest on the list. So just for making sure we catch everything, I'm going to go ahead and add that to this. So it's just cask guest and run. And one of the fun things that you're going to find about this box, and this is a rabbit hole I ran into at the very beginning when I ran the boxes. I didn't grep or any of that. I actually wrote down all the users, and cask guest came up just fine. All right. So we're back in here, and we know our users. So let's say net user s.smith. We just know that we have access to, okay, we got access to the audit share. So we have remote management, which is how we got in here. We got IT, so I know it's going to get us the same permissions that we had with r.thompson. But now we have the audit share. We can take a look at that and see what's going on in there. So, for simplicity, I'm going to just back out and just do an smbclient. We're going to say 10.10.10.182 audit $. User, this time will be s.smith. We'll give it a capital U. Leaps and bounds more effective. Paste that in here. Oh, nice. Nice, nice, nice. There's a lot in there. So I'm going to go ahead, same thing as before. I'm going to make a directory. This is going to be the Smith dump. And then I will clean this up and go right back in there. Put the password back in, and I'm going to run those same commands. Recurse, prompt, and then mget star. And in here you see we're pulling down, there's an exe, DLL, there's a database, there's a batch file, and then a couple more DLLs. Those are all seem to be associated with that exe, so this should be interesting. And this is where we start to get into the dnSpy side of the house. So we'll exit out, and then I want to take a look at that bat file. So that bat file does just one thing. It says do the Audit.exe and then pass it the database path. Okay. All right, and we'll do file on CascAudit. And that's showing up as an executable. It's .NET assembly, so dnSpy. We can go ahead and break this down, decompile it in .NET assembly. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to pull that over to my Windows box, and we're going to start taking a look at that from there. So since we're already connected to the VPN on my CommandoVM, I'm actually going to go do a 10.10.10.182. I'm going to try and log in as Steve Smith, and I already put the credentials in, but we don't see it because it's a hidden share. So we'll say give me audit $, and that is the file structure that we found before. So I'll just go ahead and make a file here on my desktop. I'll call this Cascade 1D.2, and then I'll just take all this information and copy it into Cascade. Not too big, not too bad. We'll close this out, and we're going to open up dnSpy. So you get into dnSpy, you're going to want to import it. And it's really just an open. We're going to find this folder, Cascade. Here's our exe, and you're going to import it. And it's going to decompile it. As we start to look at it, it'll start breaking it open. And there's a bunch of main modules, things like that. So now that it's decompiled it, let's go ahead and see what we're looking at. So I can go ahead and do a search for password. And there's a couple different settings. So password string, get password, set password. Nothing significant in there, but if we go back up to some of the main applications, you can see right here there's a password. But we can see up here there's a password. You can see that as you continue down, it tries to make a connection to the SQLite database. It's going to try and select some LDAP information. It's going to look for a username, a domain, and a password, and then it's going to try and generate a password by decrypting a string. So there's going to be an encrypted string that's going to pull down, and then here's the key that it uses to decrypt it, to push out the password, and continue on through to running and closing that connection. So I'll go ahead and put a breakpoint here, and we'll put a breakpoint here because really up here we'll see what's happened before. This one is going to show us what happened before and hopefully the password. So I'm going to run a debug, and when we run debug, it's going to run on that exe in this working. I'm going to go ahead and say break at entry point because there's a little oddity here that I want to cover down. So we've joined in. The first thing it's going to ask for is command line arguments cannot be equal to 1. So we'll step over that, and sure enough, it's going to kick us out to invalid number of command lines specified, must specify database path only. If you remember from, let's see, got the files here on my desktop. Let's go ahead and open up the bat in Notepad++, and you're going to see it did specify that database path. So where is our database sitting at? In this case, we're going to be looking at this folder right here. So click on it. You're going to get the database. So it's going to be that followed by Audit.db. And when you go to run a debug, it gives you that option to say, here's my arguments. So we'll give it the same information. So paste that in. Audit.db. And then we'll run it. Same thing, it's going to get to that point. So I'm just going to step through the program. Gets past that, so it got the right number of arguments. And then it's going to try and make a connection. And then it's going to run through string, that is the username, the password, and the domain. And then it's going to try and open. Now it's open. It's going to try and make that successful command. I can go ahead and hit continue because now it's going to hit that breakpoint. It's already entered into here, so it's going to hit that breakpoint. You see in this string that ARC service information is sitting there, and then it's for Cascade.local. I can step forward, and it's going to stop right here. My breakpoint was the next one, but it doesn't matter because we've already hit what we needed to hit, which is here is your password. So it's decrypted that password and kicked it out. So if we go ahead and copy this value, bring it over here, I'm going to cut it down, take out the white space at the end, and that is our password. So we'll go ahead and copy that. We'll move back over. We're going to nano passwords, right? As always, we're going to drop it in there. And then we're going to save, and then we're going to go back over, and we're going to run that MSF console again. My favorite tool. Now we got 3 plus marks, and that plus mark did come up as a success for Arc service. One of the other things you can do, I like to see it all, but it gets to be a bit much, so you can set verbose to false, and this way you're not going to get all the information. If you hit exploit, you're going to get just these successes and nothing else. So it's a little bit cleaner. And if you start running big bulk scans against a lot of passwords, a lot of users, especially if you're out doing a pen test on a larger network, this is all you need. We know we can log in here. We know that ArkSvc has a remote management rights, so let's go ahead and try and see what we can get from that. All right. So we'll clear this and run evil. We'll come back over and grab this password. Into 10.182, and we're in his ArkSvc. Let's go get that user, or that root, right? Not there. Psych. There's still more that needs to be done. We've already kind of talked about it. We've gone in and we've done all this work to get to this point, but it's about what this user can do. So let's take a look at it again. Net user, and this time we're going to say ArkSvc to take a look at this user. This user has IT, cool, has remote management, and it has Active Directory recycle bin rights. That's a real strange one. I didn't really hit that one too much. I had to rely on something that StealthBits had come out with. So about a year ago, the blog came out with Active Directory object recovery from a recycle bin. And it kind of discussed the process of going live to deleted. Deleted stays there before it's physically deleted, and that's that lifetime. As you start to do deleted and recycled, they're going to be sitting in different bins before it actually goes away. So we know by looking at that previous list that there are items that were put in the recycle bin. So they provide this nice little command, which is get all Active Directory objects. Then you're going to filter on is deleted equals true, and you're going to look for any names with deleted objects in the name, and then you have to specify this important that you really specify include deleted objects. If you don't do that, you will come back with 0 answers. So I'll go ahead and take this command as is. We'll play around with it in a little bit, but that is the first step. So we're sitting in this window. We'll paste that in. And sure enough, it comes back. You've got, what is that, 6 different objects. One's a workstation, one's scheduled tasks. You've got another group policy. You've got a machine, you've got a user, and then you've got temp admin. Well, how about that? So temp admin is exactly what we'd like to find out about. To dig a little bit deeper, you got to specify I want that object. So we'll go through and I'll delete most of this, because it's really about get object. In this case, we actually know what it is. So I want the identity, which is going to be this information right here. After deleted, this is the identity as far as Windows knows it. So we'll paste that in. And remember what I said. If you don't include deleted objects, even if you know the identity, 0 answer. Nothing comes back. So make sure you say deleted objects. So we know that object's still there, but we still don't have all the information about it. And the way you go about that is just doing a simple properties and then all. Give me all the properties. And you're going to get the information here. Oh, it's got another legacy password field. All right. So if this is the legacy password and it's the same as the normal admin password, we want this information right here. So we'll go ahead and go over here and do an echo. And when we base64 decode that, we come back with bacteria noodles. They get weirder and weirder every time, but we're going to go ahead and add that to our list. And every time we add that to our list, we're going to rerun our command. And there's our admin. We've got administrator, bacteria noodles. So we'll go ahead and do the same thing we've been doing. You could do an SMB, like a PS exec. In this case, I'm just going to exit out of here. I've already got the information still saved in my clipboard. And we'll give it administrator. We're in. So we know if we're an administrator, this should be here. Here's our root. So type root.txt, and there is your root file. So we have lumbered through a little bit of this with ldap enumeration, going through in-packet tools, looking at SMB folders, pulling down code, pulling down registry information, decrypting VNC passwords, decompiling a .NET application and pulling the password out, all that. And we still had to go back and do an Active Directory recycle bin recovery. It really was a heck of a box, but it was a very good job. I want to give all the kudos to VB Scrub. That is this box creator, and he's done some really good ones. I loved his ones in the past where you had to actually sit down in a Visual Studio suite and break down code and do code review. It's excellent. This is a great learning resource, and I highly recommend this box. If you didn't do it before, go back and do it again, and you'll get a lot out of this one. dnSpy is heavily relied upon in the Offensive Security AWAE course, so OSWE certification. It's a nice introduction to it, and there's just a minor code base to look through, not anything significant, but a good debugging primer if you haven't really done this before. So again, I'm Justin with Parity InfoSec. I appreciate your time. If you have any comments, put them in the block below. Hit me back with feedback. Let me know what you guys want to see, but for the most part, you're going to see me come back hopefully next week with another box, and we'll do this all over again. But great learning tool. Appreciate you coming out. Happy Saturday. Peace.